Hello, hello.
Hi.
Hi, everybody. I'm Vanita, and welcome back to Food for the Chakras. And thank you, Ariel, for joining me again.
Thank you for having me again for the third time.
Yes, it's been really wonderful just to go through, to ascend through the chakras with you. And we're both wearing yellow because we're discussing the Manipura chakra today. And the Manipura is the solar plexus. So we're looking at the digestion, and the color is yellow, represented by fire, which is one of my favorite elements. Though because we have so much fire, represented with what we're doing, I decided to wear like silver around my eyes and my lips to represent the moon, because I feel like we're coming into such a potent time this weekend with the solar eclipse and a new moon. And if you think about it, it's really interesting that we have the darkness of the moon kind of illuminating a ring of fire with the sun. So I just wanted to represent a little bit of that watery element to make sure that we're always having all the elements with us. And, air and earth and ether are always there. And we'll be having that with all the cooking elements. So today we're going to be making a classic Ayurvedic Indian dish called khichdi. And khichdi is a very nutritive dish. I think when people think of things like rice and lentils, they think of the food being really gassy and really not as nutritious. But when it's cooked right with the right spices and in the right ways, it actually is one of the most nutrient dense foods, and it actually doesn't have any gas or bloating or any sort of stomach irritations. And in India, khichdi is actually one of the first foods that a baby eats, if not the first food. And honestly, traditionally, it's very bland. Like it's such an easy to digest food that it's typically like rice and lentils and a few spices. And so Indian people, if you mention khichdi, they're going to be like, oh, that's what I get when I'm sick, because it's like the simplest food. But it's also one of the most interesting foods. Like you can make it be so robust in so many ways. And so what we're going to do is make one that's a little more robust in terms of the flavor profile. It's going to have all the nutrients plus more. And then, I'm going to do it my way, which is drawing from other traditions. And in this case, it's going to be Japanese tradition, so that we can up the factor of being able to digest the protein without any stomach irritations. Because what we want to do is increase our digestive fire and really kind of, be able to use our food to, improve the health of our body. And, we'll talk a little bit more about the chakras. We'll talk about gut health. We're going to talk about the microbiome, because this is one of my favorite subjects. I'm actually writing a book on how we can use, the book is looking at the balance between evidence and intuition, and how we can use both to really enhance our lives. Because I think we're torn between like what's out there in terms of scientific literature or what's been found, and like what we feel for ourselves. So this is all coming down to the gut, and that's why we trust our gut.
That's right.
So Ariel, I'm really, really happy to have you back, and I look forward to hearing about your perspective on this, because I feel like, this is going to be a powerful time. In terms of dealing with the solar plexus.
It's already powerful. My gosh.
I know.
Can we get more powerful?
I know, right?
Yeah.
So I actually pulled a card from the Wild Unknown oracle of the animal spirit. I don't know if you know this oracle. It's one of my favorite oracles by Kim Cran. She also has a really beautiful tarot deck. And so I pulled the swan card, which honestly, like when I was like, oh, what is this? I wasn't sure how it would relate. And it's so on point. So the swan represents effortless creativity, sensitive mystic, elegant power. The swan represents heightened creativity. In Hindu mythology, the goddess Saraswati, the embodiment of language, creativity, and artistry, rides on the back of this graceful creature. The swan is ready to take us there, to the fluid realm of writing, creating, and reflecting. This is potent and healing energy, is not to be taken for granted or to be taken lightly. When the swan card appears, your soul is calling for attention, for solo time. An inner voice is waiting to be heard. An inner vision is likely to be revealed. When it is in balance, it's infinite creative power. When it's out of balance, it's agitated, snippy, lacking vision. To bring it into balance, you take solo time and do things like writing. And I think it's so potent because one of the aspects of this solar plexus, of the Manipuri chakra, is that digestive fire so that we can birth creativity. Because when we're in our full power, we have our full digestive power. And from that, we are really kind of manifesting who we are, our sense of purpose. And I thought this was so perfect to pull at this time because one of the things that they talk about with this chakra is like when you're really in balance is you tap into your intuitive skills. I think everybody's having their intuition talk to them right now. Like it's super potent. Manifestation is an all-time high with all of the alignments that are happening right now. And we can talk about that later, but you know, keep that in mind, you know, this idea of like using this weekend and using this time, you know, there's going to be amazing offering through the modern witch movement. They're having witch camp, you know, and I met these wonderful witches through witch camp last year. And we were in a wonderful place in nature. And unfortunately, because of what's going on right now, it's online, but it's wonderful because it's online. So everybody can go. And, you know, it's going to have everything you need from tarot readers to, you know, understanding essential oils, understanding different aspects of, you know, life and how we can really enhance our intuition, our inner witch, and build through that. And then, like I said, there's, you know, the annual solar eclipse. We have a new moon. It's the first day of Cancer. It's the first day of spring. Like it's just this magical
Summer.
time.
First day of summer.
Sorry, not spring. I've forgotten that we had spring. But
I know, right? Spring.
So yes, it's our summer solstice. So we get to, you know, really have that time to take in a lot and then have our solo time where we can set our intentions. This is a powerful time to do so. So shall we take a deep breath?
Yes, let's. Thank you for all that.
And I want to thank everybody who's here with us. You know, usually, you know, I don't get right into the cooking, but today we're going to do that because the key to this is to allow it to cook down. This can actually be done in a slow cooker, so you don't have to do this stovetop. Like I like to set this at night, have it as a slow cooker, and then you have it in the morning. And then that way you can have it for lunch the next day or set it in the beginning of the day. Set it for 8 hours and you can have it in the evening. Most Indians actually make this in a pressure cooker. And, you know, personally, I get pressure cookers, they're wonderful, but like, I just like doing things stovetop. And so we'll go with that.
Okay. I like your red pot, Vanita.
Oh yes, my La Crusette.
Beautiful.
It's a nice element. What did you say?
It's a sexy pot.
It is a sexy pot, I know. I keep this one really nice.
Yes, you do.
All right. Okay, so we're going to start with just 2 tablespoons of coconut oil. I cook everything in coconut oil because it's an oil that can really take high heat. You can use ghee. The reason you would use ghee over butter, it's just a clarified butter, obviously, so you're taking the milk solids out of it and it's more digestible. Oh, thank you for the recipe. So as you can see, like, you know, one of the reasons that people don't cook Indian food is because they get scared of the recipe list. I'm telling you, the food is easy to cook. What's in there are a lot of spices, and the spices aren't always essential in terms of have to have all of them. They're just adding a lot more robustness. They're also like, if you taste really good Indian food, you'll notice that it's stimulating different parts of your tongue, right? And so you're really getting that full health, that full vitality. And each of these ingredients has so many different properties. I'm not going to go into all of them today, but there's so many books out there. This one is book called Healing Spices, written by Bharat Agrawal, and I can post it later. But he talks, like, he himself is an MD or a PhD. He's a research scientist like myself, and you know, he really talks about his background of how food can be curative. I mean, he's a cancer researcher. He's one of the leading cancer researchers, and he's trying to show how labs have been using pretty much everything that's found in spices. But the problem is, when you isolate any ingredient, you take away the wholeness. You take away the essence that Mother Nature has been trying to give us. And so you don't have to use all the spices, and the recipes will be posted later. And what you'll see is I put asterisks by the ones that are essential, and they're essential more for the kind of you know, just having flavor in your food. The rest of it is just healing qualities. There was a really funny, so in this one, sorry, you keep taking it away. I don't say what I'm going to be doing, so I'm making this confusing for everyone. But you can see that, like, you know, the essential things are like some of the basic ones that you can have at home, like ginger and cumin. You know, obviously use salt, and like the one thing that, you know, is a little bit more essential that you may or may not use regularly are brown mustard seeds. But this is really going to give that flavor profile that I think is really important. And then the other ones are pretty general spices, but I really encourage people to go buy some spices and play with them, because you'll find that when you start putting them in your foods, you start understanding how these spices taste, and then you also understand how to use them better, and then you're getting the whole food quality out of them. I like to buy whole spices that, you know, I don't know if you can see this, but like here I have fennel and cumin. Now they look very similar in shape, but they smell so differently. Like fennel is what's used in something like sausage. Cumin is used all over the board in so many different things. But so I have about, you know, a teaspoon in each. Now, as you see, I don't measure, just use whatever. Like I said, go according to taste. But you know, you want to use lots of spices because, like I said, they're providing so many health benefits. And one of the funniest things I ever read on Twitter, I'm not somebody who goes on Twitter a lot, but like, you know, there's sometimes somebody will be like, you've got to read this thread. And one of the funniest things that I ever read was somebody had written, I don't know who it was, some influencer was like, okay, Black people can ask white people any question they want. The best thing that was ever written was, why did you raid the world of spices and not use them? So, like, you know, it's an interesting thing that I see and I hear from people very often when they see a spice list. They're like, oh my God, that's too complicated. Really, all you're doing is adding spices to a pot and, you know, increasing the flavor and, you know, nutrition of your food. And that's all it is. So what I've done here is I've added about a teaspoon of cumin, fennel, brown mustard seed, and now I'm doing this stick of cinnamon. You can buy cinnamon sticks. And now, if you don't feel like adding some of, like, the seeds should be added as is. But you'll see that I'm also going to use things like cinnamon stick, cloves, whole cloves, which I'll show you in a sec here. If you get them out in my hand. And whole peppercorns. Now, this isn't ground pepper. So I use these whole spices because, like I said, they have a different, when you're going to cook for a long time, it's nice to use the whole ones. You can crush them a little bit if you'd like, but this is a long cooking process. So I'm going to use them whole. Now, if you don't like to have these things sticking in your food, you can put them in something like a cheesecloth and then just tie it up. But honestly, you can just pick it out. And, you know, that's what we Indians do. We just pick it out of our food when you come across them. Yeah. And so heating this all in coconut oil, because you want to fry the spices a little bit. When you fry it, you're getting the essential oils that are in those spices out into the oil that your food is going to be cooked in. And so, again, you're going to have more robust flavor.
I love that. It's so cool.
Yeah, and you know, you want to just like have it so that you can smell the fragrance. One day we will get to smell-o-vision, I believe, you know, maybe one day. Maybe this is all of our like our astral traveling or like our projections, like we're gonna have to heighten those olfactory senses to like teleport to like where somebody is so that you can like watch on video and smell what they're doing.
Yeah, but I think like the brain lights up that memory of smell. So like when you see cinnamon, I can kind of smell cinnamon because that part of my brain lights up.
Super cool. Yeah. That's so true. You actually can smell. And that's actually another reason to buy spices. And then, you know, you may not be using them all the time, but really for like, you know, the amount you get, like people like spices are so expensive, but really they're not. Because like you think about the process of, you know, going through, learn to smell them. Like I smell them with my daughter.
I mean, if you're interested in mindfulness, smelling spices is such an incredible mindfulness practice.
Ooh, I love that.
Right, to engage the senses and get really present in the here and now moment, just to smell different spices is really arousing and enlivening.
Yeah. Yep, that makes sense. You know, like I think we've learned to smell essential oils, but what about smelling your food? Smell the spices. You know?
Yeah, I love smelling
actually, spices. In Ayurveda, they talk about like, you know, it's really important for digestion, speaking of like digestion and solar plexus, that what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're engaging all your senses when you eat. So, you know, you do it by sight, obviously, like have your plate look nice and like, you know, colorful food, stimulate that, and also smell it. Like take that time to sit with it and like appreciate it. We talked about gratitude in one of these videos, you know, making sure that we're conscious of the food we're eating and thanking Mother Earth and connecting with it. But, you know, smelling is an important aspect to stimulate that. All right, so these are starting to get a little fragrant. What you would see, and I'm not going to move the camera for this, but like the, you know, the mustard seeds eventually start to kind of pop a little. So this takes about 30 seconds to 1 minute. You want to make sure not to overcook the spices, but I'm telling you, like, learn to cook some of your spices before you add in whatever you're cooking, because it will change the entire flavor profile of your food. And you'll find that when you add more spices like this, you can actually reduce your salt intake. So it's another good thing for your health to think about, because you're starting to stimulate, you know, this idea of like, you know, flavor in your mouth without having to use salt to do it, and a lot of salt, because I think that, I mean, I'm addicted to salt. Yeah. I can tell you that. I
love salt.
Yeah, me too. My daughter will sit there eating salt alone, and I'm like, ah. Yeah. Okay, so now I'm going to add some of the other spices in here. So what I've added is, now I'm adding ground cumin. Cumin is just such a beautiful, flavorful spice that I added whole and ground. And now I'm also adding coriander. Coriander is actually the seed of cilantro, and Indians use all parts of the cilantro plant. So there's coriander, the seed itself, and then ground coriander. And then we're going to also add some, you can add either bay leaves, which, you know, I'm sorry, I'm still learning where my camera is here. Bay leaves, which are these, you know, large leaves. They don't have that much flavor on their own, but what they do is they bring out the flavor profile of other spices. So they're enhancing the other, it's kind of like salt. Kind of does the same thing. I'm actually going to add curry leaves. Now, curry leaves, you can buy dried curry leaves. You can buy fresh curry leaves. I'm going to add like 3 or, well, maybe a little more, because I got pieces of curry leaves here. I'm going to add these in, and they're going to give it more of that, that taste of food that, you know, Indians are known for, that Indian food taste. I don't know how to describe it. You know, it's kind of like, you know, what people associate with the word curry. But curry is just a mixture of ingredients, right? And then there's actual curry leaves, and curry leaves have a lot of benefit to them. The only place you're really going to find curry leaves, though, is an Indian grocery store. And I mean, they're all over the place. Just stop in one and ask, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm adding onions, and I just took a small onion and I chopped it into like rough pieces, and I'm coating it now with the oil. And with the onion, you can add the rest of the spices. So the spices have a nice fragrant flavor. And I'm gonna add now I have some chopped ginger and chopped turmeric, adding that into the oils, the spices, and the onions. And so this way you're kind of creating that base. It's like, in a lot of cooking, there's always that base layer of flavor. Often it's garlic and onion. In this case, we have it with the spices. So the other ingredient that I'm going to use here is Asafoetida. This is an Indian, but it's not, I guess it's a Middle Eastern spice. I think it's out of Iran or Afghanistan, but Indians use it a lot. They also call it hing, and it smells pretty pungent. I think the way the book describes it, it's garlic and onion on steroids. And so what it is a really, really pungent spice. You just need a pinch of it. If you don't want to go out and buy this, you don't want to use this, use a clove of garlic. Garlic is fine. But the reason that you add the Asafoetida is because what happens with many foods that cause gas, like think about proteins, like beans, and then foods that don't digest, it's because they're not properly broken down. And Asafoetida actually is like a powerhouse in breaking that down. It actually soothes the intestinal lining. So if you have problems like irritable bowel syndrome, IBS, or like poor digestion, bloating, anything like that, this is so good. I add it to all my firesiders. And, when you smell the spice alone, you're like, whoa. But when you cook it and when it's in something like fire cider in a large volume, you don't smell it, like you don't taste it.